and thanks for tuning into this episode of the iDeas podcast. With me is Erin Chancellor, curriculum developer and learning enthusiast. Thanks so much for taking the time for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me, Tom. This is really, really cool, and it's an honor, and I can't wait to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure if it's an honour or not, but we shall wait and see, I suppose. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation. We've got some interesting topics, but as we all know, there is in fact only one reason anyone does tune in, and that's to find out what it is that people in our industry are drinking as they discuss things over the internet from various time zones. So what have you got going?
Scottish breakfast tea, fully caffeinated.
Very nice, very nice. Well, it needs to be fully caffeinated, right? That's what our industry is fueled by.
Yes.
Caffeine.
Yeah, 4:30 in the afternoon for me, but still.
Absolutely.
Monday.
This is it. It's a Monday. You've got to keep going somehow, right?
Yeah.
I have gone for just a very boring black coffee. But it's been one of those days where it's like, yes, it is 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 at night, but yes, it is time for a coffee.
Is it fully caffeinated?
Oh, yes.
Are you going to be able to go to sleep?
Disturbingly, yes, without even a moment's hesitation.
Well, that's good. Then you get all the nutritional benefits of caffeine without any of the consequences.
Exactly.
Right?
This is it. I'm not sure my wife entirely agrees with that, but I'm going to tell. It's come from another professional now, not from me. See, that's fine. Someone on the internet told me, so it must be true.
Exactly.
Anyway, I said I would hand over to you for a proper introduction, because as usual, I have done my usual remarkably poor job of research before the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm Erin. I'm a curriculum developer. It's a new role for me, and learning and development is a new career for me. So my previous career, I left in November of last year, so it's almost coming up on 1 year that I decided to make a change to leave the field of education. I had my sights set on instructional design, and I took the leap and I went for it, meaning I left one career before I had the other one lined up and ready to walk into. So I walked into a lot of work. I walked into the digital COVID, age thing where everyone was online and everything was remote, everything was from home, and I had to find a way to stand out, and to find my place and to find a voice, and it took months, but I'm a curriculum developer now. I'm an instructional designer. I'm a learning and development professional. I'm talking to Tom, drinking tea.
This is it. This is. Please don't tell me this is the highlight so far. I don't think that's gonna fly with anyone, least of all me. But that's you know, it's been a really interesting couple of years for that. But certainly in the last kind of 12 to 18 months, I'm speaking to more and more people who are just reaching the point where they're just like, I want to do this, and I'm just gonna go for it. Whereas I feel like a few years ago, everyone was still very much in the mindset of, well, I do want to change, but I don't, my job's secure, and maybe I'll just stay here. And I'm really interested in kind of what was it that finally got you to the point where you went, I'm going for it. This is it. This is the time to do it.
Well, my pros and cons list had enough pros, and the cons were manageable. So for me personally, that meant, and part of this is living in a pandemic and a dangerous, contagious virus where you need to social distance and stay at home and not go into a crowded office building, not go into a place, so there was that element that COVID brought in the lifestyle change that we were all facing, that made it acceptable for me to literally not go into work. So that was different. That was a very different thing on my pros and cons list that had never been there before when, you know, considering any kind of change. And everything else was manageable.
I think that's it. I think
it was time.
I think that's it. I always ask the question, but I think for a lot of people that is just it. It's extremely personal. You almost just kind of feel it more than know it, right?
I felt it in. I felt it in the core of my being when I knew that I was going to leave a career, and I had my sight on instructional design, and I knew it was possible, and I knew that it could be fruitful, enjoyable, that it could be done remotely, that it could be done from home, that everything just kind of was laid out in front of me. And, you know, Erin, yeah, you can do this. And the drive home that night, I mean, I tell people I was driving home from a friend's porch, you know, that night, and I felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest, you know, like, no, this is the time. This is the time. This is the moment. Go do this.
I love hearing stuff like that because it was similar to my experience. Everyone went, "Are you not terrified?" And it's like, I kind of feel like I should be, but no, I just feel relief. I feel massive relief at getting out of this and into that. So that's wonderful to hear. So as part of that then, I know something you've been speaking about a lot recently has been personal brand. And this is a topic, for those of you who tuned into season 1, you will know that I have opinions about personal brand and some of the advice shared around on the internet. Predominantly the stuff shared by self-proclaimed influence and experts who have never actually done anything, they're just influencers and experts. So I'm really interested here, when you talk about personal brand, what is it that you're thinking about?
When I talk about personal brand, I'm not quite sure where the word brand comes into play. You know, it makes it personal branding. I prefer like online authenticity. I know I've said that a couple of times, and I keep coming back to that because that's kind of more what this is. You know, this whole notion, this idea that I'm talking about, and these practices that I put into place to make myself noticeable online, was not, you know, personal branding, was not marketing. It wasn't any of those things. It was finding a way to show authenticity. So I met with a mentor of mine that I met early on, is now a dear friend. She looked at my LinkedIn profile about a year ago. And said, well, it was dull, you know, it was boring, it wasn't well written, I didn't know what I was doing, I had no idea. And she said, you know, Erin, you are such a colorful and vibrant person, and that doesn't show on your LinkedIn profile, and I want it to. Like, we need to find a way to show what you're like.
That's fantastic.
Isn't that fabulous?
But it's so simple, and yet totally the problem when you scroll through LinkedIn. It's dark blue, dark red, white, and black. Like, it's I would say the vast number of LinkedIn profiles that I check out, especially when hiring, I scroll straight past because they're just so dull. And almost to a person, these dull accounts will go, I have visual design skills. And I'll go, well, you're not demonstrating them there, are you? Moving on.
Yeah.
And I don't mean by that everyone has to have like this masterpiece banner that they've carefully crafted over 60 hours of illustration work, but just something that isn't, you know, select stock image 73, upload some text, job done. So I think that's fantastic sort of advice. So in terms
the idea of color and vibrancy, it planted a seed, that interaction with this friend of mine that I met, by the way, completely remotely, all virtually. You know, this was all part of networking. That colorful and vibrant, those actual words that she said that described me, that she was saying, I just want other people to be able to see it, really stuck in my head. And then at some point, I don't know when it was, but I started dragging that eyedropper like all around the whole color spectrum of every color, just moving it around and trying to identify what color represented my energy. And I did, and I landed on a lighter pink color first, because I was feeling very self-conscious. Like, I don't want to stand out like bright in the crowd and then say what, like, what do I have to say? I need a job, and that's it. Like, I was feeling more self-conscious, so I had a lighter color of pink. And then, as my time online, isolated at home, just me and my computer, breaking into a new field, trying to meet people, find a job, and upskill I wound up with this bright pink color.
That's awesome.
Took time.
Yeah, I think. But
does that make sense? I feel like I just talked a lot. I'm trying to. It's such a weird thing to say. What color represents your energy? But do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah, I think I do. It is funny though, isn't it? Because there is that kind of the person who kind of prompted me to think about LinkedIn was actually another instructional designer that I've had the good fortune to work with in a couple of places now. And we've developed a really nice working relationship. But he really pushed me to think, what about your page makes it yours rather than just an instructional designer or a learning person? And it just got me thinking. I think we probably approached it slightly differently, but I love the fact that it was finding that colour that you felt just really represented what you wanted to be online. And I think that's just that one change makes a huge difference, because it does immediately stand out. If you haven't seen Erin's LinkedIn profile, the link will be in the description. Go and check it out, and it does stand out, because you get there and it's just like that. You can't not see it, you can't not feel it, and it makes you want to read that first post or what have they done recently on here, compared to you're wearing a suit, great, lovely, moving on. Which is usually how LinkedIn goes, unfortunately. So I'm really interested, actually, beyond the just the colour, when you were looking at your kind of online presence then, and you were making this jump, or had made the jump and then were working through it, what else were you looking at? What else were you changing?
As far as appearance-wise goes, so when it comes back to the personal branding term versus online authenticity, like, I feel like the pink is a personal brand color now, because it's intentionally everywhere that I post something or do something, or in my logo and all of that stuff, but it really is an authentic representation of myself and my energy. The other thing that I did that was really authentic to where I was a couple of months ago, breaking into a new field, looking at my computer screen every day and trying to make connections and learn, was that I decided that once I started posting and commenting and sharing, it takes courage to do that. At first, like, it takes courage to post something and know anyone in the world can see it, and hit enter and know that it's there and someone can take a screenshot of it. Even if you delete it later, like, it's just, there's a finality in there. I feel like there needs to be a purpose and a confidence to how you're posting stuff. And how I started posting stuff was by posting comments of appreciation for someone sharing something, and gratitude for, like, people's opinion. So I would find learning and development professionals and posts that had lots of interactions and stuff like that, and I'd go in and I'd say, oh, thank you so much for the recommendation. I'm definitely going to check out that book. And I didn't just say it, I did it. Like, I found a way to be new in the field and show that I was new. Does that make sense? What do you think of what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
It makes perfect
sense.
Slow. But I think sometimes people obsess over that. What do I post? What do I have to say? What do I have to add to the industry? I mean, the truth is, actually, when I look at people who post, I prefer sometimes reading stuff from people who haven't been doing this for so long, because usually they have an interesting take on something, as opposed to the same take they've been posting for the last 30 years. But that's just me.
Yeah.
I feel like people have always got something they can share, especially in something as broad as learning. Everyone's got an experience no one else has. But we were discussing earlier, it's a brave thing to start doing. So I think that's not only a fantastic way to get used to interacting via kind of not just social media but broadly online as a professional, but also, as you say, by actually picking up those recommendations, by by following the people that not necessarily that proclaim themselves to be leaders of the industry or influencers or experts. Those words always, I don't mind leader so much, but expert and influencer always concern me whenever I see them on a profile line.
I don't think I follow anyone that has that in their
probably a good thing.
presence.
Usually they're the ones who once I see it, I tend to go, oh really? Unless someone else has named you that, I'll pass. And there aren't that many in our industry. We're quite lucky. People tend to be quite normal, I would say, in that regard.
I was going to say humble.
Yes, let's go with humble. It's even when they know they've got something useful to say, they just say it. They don't feel the need to say it and then attach the words, by the way, I'm an expert, to the end. Which is always fun. But taking that advice, and whether it's a book recommendation or a podcast or a video or even just a research article or a blog article to go and read, going and interacting, you also gain that wealth of knowledge, that breadth of knowledge as well, even if it's not something that's directly attached to what you're doing tomorrow. You never know which bit of information is going to come up in 6 months and be the thing that you can now hold a basic conversation about that impresses someone, that connects you to such and such, that gets you a job. You know?
Yeah, it's all connected. I got this. The job that I have now was through. It was I got the job because I'm qualified. I'm doing very well at it. I love it. But I got in front of the hiring manager because a connection sent me to the recruiter who sent me to the hiring. It does work like that. And as a matter of fact, the connection that moved my name forward, that got me in front of the person who gave me this job, she and I had never actually spoken like this. We're all virtual, of course. I don't think that we have ever, had like a meet and greet or anything like that where we, talked, but we see each other, we follow each other, we see what we're saying, what we're doing, we interact with each other, and it's enough for us to vouch for each other. And I think that's amazing, to have. And this connection wasn't the first one. There were other connections that reached out to me. It was incredible. I mean, after several months, it takes time, to build up this presence in this community. But I had a couple of connections that reached out to me and to say, are you still looking for a job? Something came up at my company or something to that effect. And there are people that I've simply interacted with on LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense, because for a long time I've said, in this industry, above all else, whenever I'm looking to hire people, obviously there are required skills and certain experiences I prefer to people to have, but above all else, I will only ever give a job to someone who has a genuine and clearly demonstrated passion for our industry. You can have these amazing technical skills, but if you don't actually care, or I'm not sure that you care, I'm not gonna, especially as a small business owner, I'm not gonna trust my business's reputation and the kind of work mentality we have to anyone that doesn't love what they do. Because it's just, for me, it's just not worth it. And even when I was recruiting in bigger businesses, I would take exactly the same approach, because I think we're an industry where you can't dial it in. If someone does, everyone suffers. Because we've all seen it, right? We've all been in the experience where we're in a job and we're sitting there going, this training sucks. And not always, but usually that is the sign of an L&D team that is cruising to retirement or doesn't actually want to be in L&D. They've just kind of ended up there in a business. Whereas you speak to people like yourself and other people on LinkedIn in smaller businesses and larger businesses as well, but I think it's harder to find and harder to maintain in them sometimes, certainly in the UK, is people who they live for L&D. You know, you could offer them any other job. Maybe they would pick a different job, but it would still be in learning and development. They couldn't imagine themselves doing something else. It's
that's how I found that sounds so similar to me finding instructional design, saying, going from, you know, my previous career in education, or learning is fascinating. You know, it's amazing. It's so cool.
This is it. I've always said it worries me, anyone that says they don't find it interesting. So how can you not find the process of learning fascinating? Learning
and forgetting, you know, and the whole 9 yards. What's going on up here?
it's a kind of grand and slightly over the top thing. It's the nature of everything is to be a human being. It kind of what makes us different. And yet in the workplace, it's what elevates, for me, it's always what elevates a job to a career, is what learning you can do within it. That we get to do that for a living. And if you can't get excited about it, I kind of want to say, get out of the way, because someone will get really excited about it and they should have your job. It's which is a little bit harsh, but at the same time, I don't think there is room in the industry for people who don't actually care about it. I think it matters too much, if I'm honest.
I love that.
So the one thing you said that I found really interesting was about personal authenticity. And I think often at times there's confusion between authenticity and transparency.
With
people who just post everything and say it's about being authentic. So I'm just wondering where you kind of sit on the what do you post, what don't you post, where's that line for you?
Well, there's definitely a line, but I never crossed my mind until you said it just now, the difference between authenticity and transparency. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, because I like to keep things private. You know, I don't, prior to last fall, I did not have like a big online presence, you know. Wow, that is such an interesting thing to think about. I'll say this. Transparency online, I'm not really comfortable with. As a notion, on the whole. Authenticity, I would say, the way that I've found it is that what I do share is true, and it's genuine. It's not like everything about. How would you separate authenticity and transparency? You're onto something here. This is interesting.
I kind of have a very similar definition to you. So I would say everything I post most days on most sort of Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. However, there's very little about me as a person, what I would describe as my personal life online, because it doesn't really belong there. My social media is for my career, my I don't want to say my professional persona, but it kind of is, because whether I think if it was transparency, for instance, there would be a lot of posts going, why is it 9:30 in the morning and I want to have a beer already? And whilst that is me, I'm not going to do that, by the way. Rest assured, viewers, everything's fine, no need to panic. But that there are, I feel, people who would post that, and they enjoy sharing everything about their lives. For me, that's a personal thought, maybe something I'll say to a colleague or someone that I know well, but wouldn't post publicly.
Because then other people would have to weed through to find out if you post everything, you know.
This is it. I think there's this thing around posting something personal will generate a lot of engagement, and I don't get to the point where I think that should be a Facebook only post, because it's every individual person's choice, right? For some people, that you can tell their brand is everything about themselves. For me, my public brand is a very small segment of myself. It's the segment that's about learning and development and my business and my career. It's not, walks, and it's not family activities, and it's not, reading books of, fantasy genres. And occasionally I put some relevant things across. When there's crossover, great, that's even better. But that's authentic as opposed to transparent. I wouldn't, post my dinner. I wouldn't post if there was a family tragedy or something happened. For me, that just doesn't belong on the internet. And I don't know, for me, I would feel that would damage my not the authenticity, but the brand, for a better term, if that makes sense. So for me, it's always that question of, does this post add value to someone else, or is it just me talking about myself? And if it's just me talking about myself, why would anyone else have any interest in reading it? Is my question.
Well, that's interesting, but I don't know. I think posting a little bit about yourself is it's a great way to connect with other human beings. I'm thinking back over the summer. So over the summer I was fully into my network and my online communities and all of this stuff, and I'd just been learning and development, former teacher, L&D, instructional design. Like, all of my posts were related to that. And then I had to go with my family out to the Midwest and take care of my the family house that was there after the loss of my grandmother. And it's so interesting that you bring this up, and that I'm even thinking about this and talking about this, because I know what happened. I just realized what happened. The people that I had been interacting with virtually, remotely, through messages and posts for all of those months leading up to that trip that summer had become my friends. And I wanted to share a little, just something with them about this emotional trip that I was on, and what it meant to me. Why I have a flower emoji behind my last name now. I was ready to give a human piece of myself, a part of myself, but to the community. But I also wanted my friends.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And
I think that's what happened, because I think that's what happened. I think I care a lot about the people that I've met.
Yeah, I think I don't think I'd ever advocate for none of yourself in your, because then I feel like there is a point where if you hide the fact you're human, then you do lose that authenticity. You're not even getting that out there.
Right.
Because I think when I talk about value, I think it doesn't necessarily have to be raw, here is L&D information to go and implement value. That value can be, I think, connecting with other people. That's never been one of my strengths. I'm one of those people.
Pull it out of you, Tom.
Whenever someone goes, so let's go through that group of friends, and it's like, oh, well, there's Luke, we've been friends for 20 years. Cool. He's put up with me for that long, so he makes the grade. That's a sort of the thing. But I think it's about finding where that line is for you. It's not necessarily in the same place for everyone. So
very true.
That, for instance, each year I post on Tolkien Day.
Nice.
Because I'm a big nerd. But for me, Tolkien is very important in terms of the messaging behind a lot of his work, its relevance to the modern world. So it's more about, today's the day where you should read something by Tolkien, here are resources, here's this kind of thing, go and learn about this incredible person and his writing. And for me, that's kind of like my more personal thing that I'd put on social media.
I love it. Only one day a year?
Well, there's only Tolkien reading day is only one day a year. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't really, other than that, I don't post that much personal stuff. And I think that's largely different by, like, in my family, I'm the weirdo because I've got social media. Like, no one else does, pretty much at all.
Yes.
So I think we are a naturally very kind of no, that's no in the box, put that way kind of.
Yeah, a little guarded.
Yeah, exactly. I think we kind of that comes with kind of benefits and downsides as always. But I think that's the kind of thing that adjusts where your line is for what you wouldn't post, I would imagine.
I completely agree. That makes me think about there are a couple of different there are a couple of different women who have shared fertility journey, struggles and their experience with it, or the path that they went down, and it's really amazing to see and I'm talking about something this as an example because it's so incredibly personal and so incredibly private and just your choice to share it or not, 100%. But there's something really beautiful about the community that rallies around people sometimes when they share something so vulnerable and so intimate. I feel like I'm kind of rambling now, but you said something about being very guarded, and then there's these beautiful moments where someone isn't, and then they like let something out and people's lives are changed, by it.
Yeah,
interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I think if you've experienced something that does have that kind of life-changing punch to it, I think there's, again, when I use the word value and it almost sounds like a bad thing, but those messages hold a very real value because you're right, someone else will see that and go, I've been unable to speak about that, or that just the idea of it has provoked something else. And I think if you've got something like that and you choose to share it, I like seeing that. I think that it shows an incredible strength to it. Again, and a certain commitment. Again, I often look at social media from looking for people to potentially work with in the future. Someone who's willing to do that in a constructive way, I think, wow, that's amazing. Whereas when I talk about people who are transparent and maybe overpost, I'm more talking about and this is what I'm having for breakfast, and now I'm going out, and now here's a photo of this, and now, once you get to that kind of 3 or 4 posts a day, every day, and that kind of running journal of your entire life, for some people it might be the right move, and I'm sure in some careers it works very well. As like within L&D, I tend to look at it if I was looking at someone to recruit with and just think, where's the focus on others as opposed to yourself, kind of thing. Whereas the one thing, all those kind of messages that you're talking about when they get shared, almost always when you read them, they're reaching out. They're not just saying me. They're saying this has happened to me, and almost exclusively there's an outreach component to it, which I think is just phenomenal because it's showing someone turning something that's often very personally sad or personally challenging, and reaching out to people rather than moving away from them. And that's wonderful to see. I think it's a tricky space, I think.
It is a tricky space, isn't it? Because I was just thinking to bring this around, in another little bit of a circle. I think, a little while ago I mentioned not wanting, maybe I did or I alluded to it, not posting much or not wanting to post much or not knowing what to post and having, I deliberate. Oh my gosh, when I put a post on LinkedIn, I have a vision in mind moving forward about posts that I'm going to share and how I'm going to do it. It takes me a good 45 minutes to formulate one of those posts. Like it takes a lot of deliberation and a lot of time. And you were mentioning, multiple posts a day about random things. And it popped into my head the thought, well, is this a situation where the more you post, the less value is in each one of those posts? Like if you're just going, if it's just, a stream of consciousness, or it's just coming out all day long, how is there a way to identify, the golden nugget post that came out amongst all those?
Yeah.
Where's every one? You post every day, Tom?
Not quite every day. I tried that, and cause it's the wisdom, right? To do well, you need to post every single day, and then you'll get something magical will happen in the background because everyone thinks they've hacked the algorithm or whatever. I tried it, and I just realised that after a week, it's like, I don't want to post this. I feel like I'm having to do this now. So in the end, I just kind of went, you know what? I'm gonna look for things to share, and if something comes up that I want to share, I'll share it. And if there isn't anything, I won't. So I think I kind of pulled back a little bit on worrying about that so much. But you do see, I say you suffer a bit for it. You do certainly see lower numbers because of that. But again, I think if you're just chasing numbers, you're probably not using it you're probably not looking after yourself particularly well if you just chase numbers on LinkedIn all day, because it don't actually make you any money, it turns out. That's the kind of thing no one tells you when they tell you about social media marketing. Those view numbers and the likes, they're not actually worth any money. No. Whereas a contract can come off one post that no one reacts to. I had this recently. I did a video ages ago, absolutely ages ago, and it did appallingly. Like it wasn't a particularly good video, to be honest. I kind of looked at it afterwards and went, I probably wouldn't have released that. Didn't get great reviews, didn't get many views at all, but then someone who happened to be looking for exactly that saw it and was like, no one else was talking about this, are you available to do some work for us? And it's like, perfect. So even though its numbers weren't good, it did generate some business. So I think I would always say post something you want to post rather than worrying about posting every day, is at least the approach I've now switched to.
Or post something that you want to have a conversation about.
Yeah.
And I talked about this the other day when I was also having a conversation about personal branding. And that conversation was going down the path of, we were discussing that you're not selling yourself to potential employers. Like you're not putting yourself online because you're trying to put out what you think someone will hire. I don't believe in doing that. I just you do you, and the rest will come. Like the right people will come to you if you're staying authentic. So it's not a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea to change your persona and what you're doing based on any particular job or particular employer that you're really gunning for. You do you, and then the rest will come. And then I was just thinking with what you were saying about likes and followers and stuff like that. I want to connect with people that I can have a conversation with.
Yeah.
So
this is it. And it's funny to say that. That's exactly why, for instance, I started this podcast. Quite often I get this, people come in, so what's the point in the podcast? It's to talk to people. That's it.
Yeah.
Like it's just how much you will learn
and
from
drink
just talking
tea
to someone. This is it. It's like, for me, it started when I set up my own business, and all of a sudden I went from working in an office full of people. Whether I liked all those people or not is irrelevant. There were people around. Some of them were very interesting. And all of a sudden it was just me in my office. And that was it. I kind of lost that conversation part, which I didn't miss at first, but after a while you do, even if you're not a big people person. Even if it's just to hear occasionally someone say something that you have never thought about, or that you completely disagree with, but it gets you thinking. And so I went, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to talk to people, and they're going to make me think. And I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully people who've come on the show enjoy it as well. We'll see. But I feel like that's one of the more powerful ways of using it for your development, and not just advertising yourself when you want a job.
And you know what? That's really hard though, because you need a job.
Oh yeah.
I needed a job.
Yeah.
It's hard to be on the job market.
Oh, it is. Yeah, don't get me wrong. And that's not to say I also think social media is or LinkedIn specifically, I think, in L&D, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to get a job. Because our industry is so closely linked up. People know each other to an extraordinary level, I find. But not in a kind of negative, we only hire our own networks way, but in a way of, if you get good word about you flowing, or you engage well and you show that passion, people hear about it. Your name becomes recognisable. You don't have to be a celebrity of the internet, but it's just a case of, oh yeah, I've seen you comment on this, or I've seen you post that. Maybe it's only once, but it added value to that person's day, or to what they were thinking about at the time. And I think you can do that without the kind of constant, hi, I'm looking for a job, hi, I'm looking for a job, hi, I'm looking for a job. You can attract the job that you want just by being yourself online.
I agree. I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I think job that I'm in now, I'm pretty sure I made it to the other side.
This is it. Well, I just say it's even that I think we all have this stuff that we talk about, right? I spoke about some of this earlier today, but I've said it before. And when people say, oh, so you never deviate from any of this stuff that you think, it's like, well, I run a business, not a church. So quite frankly, if I want to deviate from it, I will at any point. It's, so that there will be, to everything I think anyone thinks about the way they're going to use social media, the way they're going to run their business, there'll be a situation that makes them do something else. Whether it's a super personal post or a very direct, hi, I'm looking for work. It's, it's all very well to have the kind of, this is what I think, but actually sometimes situational requirements move outside of the norm, don't they? It's like, I'm sure if every client cancelled their work with my business tomorrow, please don't. I may well have to adapt my approach and change who we work with and who we don't, or if we don't work with anyone, if we just open up the store and say we'll do anything, because realistically that's what the world sometimes makes you do, right? It's we can't always just do what we want, but I think having that rough guide at least means that when things are relatively steady, you can do things the way you feel they should be done, right?
Yeah, that's a cool position to be in.
Yeah, what I said at the start, I always think you got very lucky. Very, very lucky to get to the position where I kind of don't have to worry about it too much, and I can say, well, we're going to post this but not that, and we're going to do this and not that. But anyway, another thing I want to speak to you about on that front, actually. So when you, for instance, do things like podcasts, because I'm always interested to find out how people give their time up for free. Because time is incredibly valuable, not just in our industry, but to everyone. So why do you go on podcasts, and why do you sort of choose to engage with it beyond just getting a job and being recognised and that kind of thing?
I want to help other people. That's it.
Awesome. I like that. That's really nice. But do you know what? That tallies up perfectly. I don't know of many other industries that are like L&D in that regard. Because I came from like a management and sales background before getting into L&D. No one would help each other because everyone was in. But it's because everyone was kind of like, no, this is our secret, and that's why we're going to beat you as your competitor, and all. It was all very that. Like, you'd go to events and people would only speak to other people in their business.
That is not okay.
No, I always felt it was kind of like, this is a bit stupid, really. There's enough for everyone if we all just kind of chill out a bit. Possibly why I wasn't the world's greatest salesperson. But I think L&D is remarkable in almost everyone's willingness just to say, yeah, you can have some of my time. What do you want to know?
Yes.
And I've
absolutely
never seen
found that.
like it. Cool. Oh,
totally.
So you found that as well when you were kind of transitioning over.
Yeah, moving into the field, being new, self-conscious and, unsure of the best steps to take and all of that, that a lot of people helped me very much. So
That's good to hear.
it's all about paying it forward. Yeah, really.
Awesome. So I was going to say, on that basis, well, it's big in social media world at the moment, so I'll ask, and if you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
Boy, wait, let me get my tea mug in front of my face. Go ahead.
If there's an awkward cut here in the end video, you'll know why. So where do you stand on the kind of services that are available online where you can pay to join a mentoring group or an academy or something like that to transition into being an instructional designer?
I got you.
That's cool.
Yes. My whole take on that. So, I left teaching November of last year, and I left without another job lined up. I had the whole drive home, the weight off my chest, the pros and cons list, all laid out. So I left a job without another job lined up, only because I knew I had the resources available to me to transition into instructional design without having to pay. And I never pay. I had to use my savings. Tom, I used it all. I had to use the money that I had to stay afloat while I was in between jobs. I did not have hundreds nor thousands of dollars to spare for any kind of person or program when I knew that I could figure out how to do it with what was already available for free. If I had more money than I did to spare, would I have? No.
Fair enough.
No, I didn't leave. I did not. I started in October with a plan in place to secure an instructional design position, unknown at the time, wherever it would be. I already had a plan in place and lined up. So by the time I resigned from my teaching position in November, I already knew that I could do it.
Cool. Yeah.
And still pay my living expenses.
I think it's tricky. It is, but I think I tend to come down the line of there's just no need. Yeah, if you want to do it, and like you say, you put a plan in place and you're sensible about it, there's so many people out there willing to help. There are so many resources available. If you're genuinely committed to it, you don't need to pay someone to get you there.
I think that I could have gotten a different job faster if I had a very impressive e-portfolio that I'd crash coursed and had the resources and the time to spend building out stuff and all that. I think that there would have been other smaller jobs than the one that I have now that would have hired me simply to be an e-learning developer, perhaps, something directly related to that. But I'm very happy with the path that I ended up taking and the job that I ended up securing. I know I got all these books about adult learning methodologies and all of these different I did okay. I did okay not having a formal training in an e-learning authoring tool.
I think having experienced formal training in the e-learning tool by the creators of the tool, it's definitely not worth it. Just walked out completely confused and spent the next 6 months figuring it out myself. And that was much better. But no, I think it's different for every person, but a purely personal note, I like the way you went about doing it. I personally, that's similar to, I think I kind of had the benefit of being in the corporate world, not coming in from teaching. So I think it was a slightly more I kind of glided in. Because businesses
and perhaps
do
not
just
during
give
COVID.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. It is. I always say I've been remarkably lucky in that regard in every stage of my career.
I interrupted you, but keep going. How did you talk about your path? I want to hear it.
I just I was just an angry people manager saying how hard can it be. They went for show us then. It turns out much more difficult than I thought, but not as difficult as they made it look. And from there, I kind of delivered training and carried on. But that's what I mean. I think if you're already in the corporate world, I think it is an easier movement because businesses are willing to kind of just go, you're already working for us, we'll give it a go for whatever. They're not recruiting someone new and external necessarily. Whereas I think once they do, they see the value in people like yourself. Because you bring in that immense knowledge that comes from the world of education that the corporate world is often totally lacking. Because very few corporate trainers actually have a very good understanding of that, because where do you learn it? There is no corporate area other than L&D before you get there where you would learn about the basics of learning theory and the difference, the differences between teaching and education and learning and all these other considerations that you tend to pick up later on in your career rather than at the start. Whereas I think people
that's
like
a really
yourself,
good point.
Yeah,
That's a really good point.
People like yourself, you start day one with all of that. And I would argue that is a much firmer foundation. I would argue that it took me an extra year once I was technically an L&D professional to actually become a competent L&D professional, because I didn't start with any of that. So I think businesses could do far worse than I don't want to say don't promote from within, but at least consider people from other lines of work before you just promote someone because they've been there a long time. Definitely. But
it's an interesting world out there.
It is, but I definitely agree with you in terms of I don't think people necessarily do any better when they pay people to help with that bit, and I think often the promises exceed what the benefit you're actually going to see. Is my personal opinion. People like yourself, as you say, do very, very well without it, and it's difficult.
I
to
had
see
a beautiful
how
community of support. We're figuring it out together, helping each other.
And not only did you not have to pay for the community, but it's still there now, right? It doesn't disappear when you stop paying.
These are like my friends, my best friends. Like this has been an incredible year. This has been a really, really incredible year.
Yeah, I would agree with that. With the brackets of let's not have one quite like this again, but at least in terms of work, 2 thumbs up.
Yeah.
So we're really rapidly coming up on time, but I really want to ask this before we finish up. I'm trying to ask everyone in this series. Do
I need my tea mug in front of my face again?
No, it's not controversial at all. Not controversial at all. Over the next 12 months, what are you looking forward to? What are you really excited about?
Over the next 12 months, I am really excited about experiencing my first year in a new career. This is really exciting. So I am happy with moving forward, in the year, and I don't know, I feel happy. So
that's
should
awesome.
be a good year.
And that's so often when I ask people like, I need a new job, and you're like, oh, okay. That's unfortunate.
I secured a role that I'm very happy in just 2 months ago, actually, over the summer. So I'm really feeling it, and I'm really feeling L&D. Like this is a great community of people, and I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. And then in my personal life, I I wanted to think of something funny to say, like some cool thing that I'm gonna do this year. Oh, I know what I'm looking forward to. I planted an avocado tree from the seed that I like scooped out of the avocado and that I germinated, and I planted it a couple of months ago, and it's already a couple of feet tall, and it's still in a really small like nursery pot, so it's just growing. It's just already a huge tree. I'm excited to see where it is in 12 months from now.
That's awesome. You'll have to come back and update us on both things. How was your first year, and how's the tree? I love it. That's cool.
That's my next 12 months, Tom. Thank you.
Hey, that's awesome. You're the first person to bring up trees, which is awesome. Because it's like the couple of people out there who know me outside of the professional persona I described will know for my love of trees, which is awesome. That's thus liking the Lord of the Rings so much and the wonders that are in this.
Are you really?
Everyone that I say to that before they know me better thinks I'm joking. Trees are the most incredible things on this planet, and I think it's like this. There is one of my business's big thing is planting trees. It's like when we started, it was what's going to make us different? Trees. That's what's going to make us different as an e-learning company. We're going to plant trees everywhere. But it's I don't know. It's one of those weird things, but it's nice to hear someone else talk about trees and not just me. There we go.
We can keep talking about trees if you want to. I got you, Tom.
Probably a different podcast. I don't think the audience will be too interested. But
well, we could talk about trees. Like right now, I wish the avocado tree's right out there. It's outside. It's in this nursery pot outside, but I really wish I could pick it up and show it to you right now. And then we could talk about this huge beech tree that's over here to the side outside my window. Beautiful trees.
Amazing. Yeah, it's well, I shan't get talking about trees. We'll be here for hours.
Oh man, I thought I got you.
No, we are coming up on time though, so I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out to come and join me for a cup of tea and a nice chat. Obviously, you're welcome back anytime, but I'm sure everyone will really enjoy this episode. And thank you so much to everyone in the audience for tuning in to another episode of the iDeas podcast. All the details for connecting with Erin will of course be in the description of this episode. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, consider subscribing to the channel.